We're live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, coming up in the next 30 minutes. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar slams double standard on conflicts at G20 foreign ministers meet, says threatening development cannot facilitate peace, also calls for no accommodation to terrorism. Indian Air Force to bid farewell to the longest-serving aircraft MiG-21 with a ceremonial flypast in Chandigarh. Air Chief Marshal E.P. Singh will fly the last sortie of the MiG-21 Bison aircraft. US President Trump announces 100% tariff on pharmaceutical products from the 1st of October, also imposes tariffs on trucks, home renovation materials. And in Asia Cup, India to take on Sri Lanka in the last Super 4 round in Dubai today. Already qualified India to face Pakistan in the finals on Sunday for the first time in 17 years. And on to the details now. External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar called for zero tolerance towards terrorism and urged the international community to avoid any form of accommodation or indifference to terrorist activities.
A persistent threat to development is that perennial disruptor of peace, terrorism. It is imperative that the world display neither tolerance nor accommodation to terrorist activities. Given the extensive networking among terrorists, those who act against them on any front actually render a larger service to the international community as a whole.
Well, speaking at the G20 foreign ministers meeting in New York on the sidelines of the UNGA, External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar referred to ongoing conflicts like Ukraine and Gaza. Jaishankar said that such geopolitical tensions directly impact global energy, food and fertilizer security, especially in the global south.
The costs, especially to the global south, in terms of energy, food and fertilizer security were starkly demonstrated by ongoing conflicts, particularly in Ukraine and Gaza. Apart from jeopardizing supplies and logistics, access and costs themselves became pressure points on nations. Double standards are clearly in evidence.
Well, he further said that the global peace and development have seen parallel deterioration in recent times.
Peace can certainly enable development, but by threatening development, we cannot facilitate peace. Making energy and other essentials more uncertain in an economically fragile situation helps no one. Therefore, the way out is to move the needle towards dialogue and diplomacy, not in the opposite direction towards further complications.
Well, in continuation of India's humanitarian assistance, a fresh consignment of humanitarian aid for Afghanistan following last month's devastating earthquake has reached Kabul via Chabahar. The Ministry of External Affairs said that the latest shipment, consisting of 3 container loads of relief materials, had arrived in the Afghan's capital via the Chabahar port and was handed over to the authorities. While the consignment includes a wide range of essential items such as food supplies, water purifiers, among other essential goods. This is the third batch of Indian assistance sent to support those affected by the earthquake. The 6.0 magnitude tremor, which struck on August 31st, claimed nearly 2,200 lives and displaced more than 23,000 people, making it one of the deadliest quakes to hit Afghanistan in recent decades. And moving on, after 6 decades in the skies, the Indian Air Force is set to retire the last 2 squadrons of its iconic MiG-21 fighter jets, with a ceremonial farewell scheduled for September 26th at Chandigarh. Well, for decades, this aircraft was the backbone of India's aerial defence, serving in key conflicts from 1971 to the Balakot operations. An Indian Air Force tribute describes the aircraft as not just a fighter, but a symbol of resilience, highlighting between the machine and the personnel who flew and maintained it. Well, the farewell marks an emotional moment as the jet flies into the sunset, but the aircraft will not be sent to the scrapyard. As its engines fall silent, the MiG-21's legacy will be etched forever in the history of Indian Air Force.
The Chief of the Air Staff, joined by Squadron.
And India's Defence Ministry on Thursday signed a deal with Hindustan Aeronautics Limited to buy light combat aircraft for the Indian Air Force. The deal, worth around $7 billion, would fetch the Air Force 97 single-engine, multi-role Tejas Mark 1A fighter jets, with deliveries to begin from 2027. Here are the details.
In a landmark move to boost India's self-reliance in air warfare capability, India's Defence Ministry signed a contract with public sector defence major Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, or HAL, on Thursday, worth around $7 billion for domestic production of 97 light combat aircraft Mk1A, also known as Tejas. The deal entails manufacturing of 68 fighters and 29 twin-seaters, the deliveries of which will begin in 2027-28 and completed over 6 years. Dubbing the move as a major boost for the government's Atmanirbhar Bharat, or Self-Reliant India initiative, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh hailed the development on social media. He posted on X saying, "The supply of these aircraft by HAL would enhance operational capability of the Indian Air Force to continue their unhindered operations and strengthen defense preparedness of the country. This contract reflects the trust and confidence of the government and the armed forces in the indigenously developed aircraft Tejas, which will be the mainstay of the IAF in the years to come." India's homegrown light combat aircraft was conceived in the 80s for replacing the aging Soviet-era MiG-21 and Su-7 fleets. The program got a boost during the 90s, and its Technology Demonstrator 1 version took to the skies in 2001. The second series production, or SP2, was given initial operational clearance in 2016, and the Indian Air Force currently has 2 squadrons of the Tejas Mk1 version. The latest contract is for 97 Mk1A version, which is more advanced. There will be 67 additional items incorporated over and above the 2021 Mk1A contract. It will be integrated with advanced indigenously developed systems. Mk1A will have the Uttam Active Electronically Scanned Array radar, Swayam Raksha Kavach and Control Surface actuators. Mk1A will have over 64% indigenous content. 97 aircraft contract comprises 68 fighters and 29 twin-seaters, along with associated equipment. Delivery of the aircraft will start during 2027-28 and will be completed within 6 years. The project is being supported by a robust vendor base of nearly 105 Indian companies. The production is expected to generate around 11,750 direct and indirect jobs each year for 6 years. The latest Tejas contract has been inked at a time when Friday will see the IAF retiring its last 2 squadrons of the MiG-21 fighters in an elaborate ceremony in Chandigarh. This will Bring India's effective squadron strength down to 29. Earlier in April this year, a multi-billion-dollar deal to buy 26 Dassault Rafale M fighter jets for the Indian Navy was also signed by India to add to 36 Rafales, which have already been inducted into the Air Force. India's defense requirements, particularly in the aerial domain, have assumed an added sense of urgency since the nation's cross-border strikes against Pakistan's terror infrastructure during Operation Sindoor in May this year, following the Pahalgam terror attack. Gautam Roy's report for DD India.
And Prime Minister Narendra Modi has put sustainability at the core of India's growth. From solar leadership to river rejuvenation, afforestation and life movement, India is reshaping its green future and inspiring the world. DD India's Tapas Bhattacharya with this report.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi has placed environmental sustainability at the very heart of India's development journey. His vision blends tradition with modern solution, reminding us that real progress cannot come at the cost of nature. On the global stage, he championed the International Solar Alliance, uniting nations for clean energy. Under his leadership, India has pledged net zero emission by 2070 and today ranks among the world's leaders in solar and wind power.
Prime Minister Modi went and made this announcement of the Panchamrit, which is basically the 5 major announcements that India made. And one important part of it is that 50% of our total energy capacity would come from green energy. So that was a major commitment, that 50% would come from non-fossil fuels by the year 2030.
At home, projects like Namami Gange rejuvenate lifelines of the nations, while a strong push for afforestation has taken root through unique initiatives. The most recent Ek Ped Maa Ke Naam calls on every citizen to plant a tree in tribute to their mother. A simple gesture carrying a profound message. Caring for trees is caring for the life itself. In 2021, Prime Minister Modi launched Life Mission, Lifestyle for Environment, urging people to adopt sustainable choices in daily life. From reducing waste to embracing eco-friendly alternatives, the movement echoes India's timeless philosophy of harmony with nature.
The Prime Minister was bringing to a minimum the use of single-use plastic. The whole movement of lifestyle for the environment, LIFE, again was announced globally by the Prime Minister in Glasgow at COP26. A completely brilliant idea which the Prime Minister had.
Through these efforts, Prime Minister Modi has redefined India's environmental narrative, turning challenges into opportunities and positioning the nation as a global leader in green growth and sustainable living. Tapas Bhattacharya's report, TD India.
And Minister of State for Information and Broadcasting, Dr. L. Murugan, concluded his visit to South Korea. The visit strengthened bilateral cooperation in media, entertainment, gaming and digital innovation. Well, India showcased a strong creative presence at 30th Busan International Film Festival and Asia Content Market, Bharat Parv at Waves Bazaar, showcasing Indian culture and creative economy. Also, Dr. L. Murugan held talks with Korean parliamentarians and industry leaders to deepen collaboration in media, AI, blockchain and content protection. Also, Indian diaspora in Korea was lauded by Dr. Murugan as key partners in strengthening bilateral ties. He invited Korean delegation to participate in the 56th International Film Festival of India in Goa. And still to come in this edition of DD India Live. Trump says he held good talks on Gaza, including with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. US President escalates legal retribution campaign as ex-FBI Director James Comey indicted. And India welcomes the world as Prime Minister Modi's message marks grand opening of Para Athletic Championship 2025 in New Delhi.
Jaipur.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Lipakshi Kuran. And moving on, US President Donald Trump on Thursday announced new tariffs on pharmaceuticals, big rig trucks, home renovation fixtures and furniture. Trump in a social media post stated that the US will be imposing a 100% tariff on any branded or patented pharmaceutical product unless the company is building their pharmaceutical manufacturing plant in America. He added there will therefore be no tariff on these pharmaceutical products if construction has started. Well, the announcement also covers other imports, including a 50% tariff on kitchen cabinets, 30% to upholstered furniture, and 25% to heavy trucks. Now, the new tariff rates will be implemented from the 1st of October. And later, talking to the reporters, Trump said that the United States would allocate tariff revenue to the farmers as well.
And we're going to take some of that tariff money that we made, we're going to give it to our farmers, who are, for a little while, going to be hurt until it kicks in. The tariffs kick into their benefit. So we're going to make sure that our farmers are in great shape because we're taking in a lot of money. We're finding, the other day, it was very interesting, they found $31 billion.
Well, also US President Donald Trump vowed on Thursday to stop Israel from annexing the West Bank as he presses to end the Gaza conflict. Now, speaking to reporters in the Oval Office, Trump said he will not allow key ally Israel to annex the West Bank. Trump made the statement just minutes after updating that he had engaged in good talks on the topic of Gaza, including with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
We've had some very really good talks today on Gaza with both the Middle East representatives and kings and all of the top leaders in the Middle East. And we had also a very good conversation with Bibi Netanyahu, trying to get the hostages back, and we're trying to get the end of the Gaza situation. It's really bad, very bad. And we think it could happen. Maybe it could happen pretty soon. We want the hostages back, we want the bodies back, and we want to have peace in that region. So we had some very good talks.
Meanwhile, European Council President Antonio Costa on Thursday urged the world leaders at the United Nations to act collectively to confront major crises around the world. Speaking at the UN General Assembly, he called for the unconditional release of hostages and immediate ceasefire.
Peace in the Middle East requires a collective response, and we need everyone to assume their responsibilities. We must act together and demand the unconditional release of all hostages, an immediate ceasefire, full and unimpeded humanitarian access, an end to illegal settlements, a renewed, credible commitment to a two-state solution.
Well, as the US president escalated a campaign of legal retribution against political foes, former FBI director and prominent Donald Trump critic James Comey was indicted on 2 criminal counts. The charges came days after Trump took the highly unusual step of publicly urging Attorney General Pam Bondi to take action against Comey and others he sees as enemies. Well, Comey was charged with making false statements and obstruction of justice in connection with the probe he conducted into whether Russia interfered in the 2016 election that Trump won and if Trump colluded with the Russians. If convicted, Comey faces up to 5 years in prison, according to federal prosecutor Lindsay Halligan, who was appointed by Trump just days ago. She's a former personal lawyer to the president who has no experience as a prosecutor. Trump fired Comey in 2017 amid a probe into whether whether any member of the Trump campaign had colluded with Moscow to sway the 2016 presidential vote. Meanwhile, Trump hailed the indictment, saying Comey is one of the worst human beings this country has ever been exposed to. And moving on, the airspace over Denmark's Aalborg airport was reopened early on Friday after closure for the second night in a row due to suspected drone activity. Now, earlier, the same happened on Wednesday night after drones were observed near the airport. Denmark's defense minister said on Thursday the nightly drone sorties were in fact hybrid attacks combining military and covert tactics and were aimed at spreading fear. Now, whereas reiterating defense minister's comments, Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen said that the attacks are being done over critical military and civilian sites.
Danmark har I de seneste dage været udsat for hybridangreb.
Denmark has in recent days been subjected to hybrid attacks. Drones have been seen in several places at critical infrastructure, military and civilian. These are attacks that we must expect. There are maybe more of them, and they are attacks that have shown vulnerabilities. And these are attacks that are intended to create insecurity and division. These are attacks that should shake us as people and as a society.
Så har myndighederne hævet beredskabet, og de forbereder sig på.
Well, South Korea fired warning shots at a North Korean commercial vessel that crossed the maritime border in disputed waters of the Korean peninsula's west coast, and the vessel subsequently retreated. Now, in a statement, the South's Joint Chiefs of Staff said that the incursion early on Friday also involved South Korean military transmitting verbal warnings, and the operation followed standard protocol. The waters around the so-called Northern Limit Line border, which were drawn up after the 1950-53 Korean War, have been the scene of deadly naval clashes in the past. North Korea does not recognize the line as the border. And Nepal's Election Commission has announced that the collection and updating of the voter roll will continue until mid-November for citizens who turn 18 by March 4, 2026. Now, the decision was made at the Election Commission's meeting on Thursday following President Ramchandra Paudel's ordinance on voter registration. President Ramchandra Paudel, on the government's recommendation, issued an ordinance to amend the law so as to enroll new voters for the upcoming polls. Due to Rupandehi by-elections, registration of new voters was stopped after June 30th, but with the Amendment of Voters Registration Act, new Nepalese citizens reaching 18 years of age and eligible for voting in March 2026 elections. The interim government has the responsibility of conducting fair elections on March 5th, 2025 to form a new government elected by the people. Election Commission has affirmed that it is fully capable of conducting the elections within the required time frame. And on to some business news now. In a bid to revive companies flagging sales, Starbucks announced that it would close underperforming stores in North America, including its iconic Seattle roastery, as CEO Brian Niccol presses ahead with his restructuring effort, which is expected to cost $1 billion. Now, the coffee chain's overall US and Canada store count is expected to drop by 1% to several hundred stores by the end of 2025 fiscal year. Niccol is trying to restore the chain's coffee house feel to bring customers back to its outlets after 6 consecutive quarters of declining US sales. Talks between Starbucks and the Workers' United Union, which represents over 12,000 baristas, began last April but have hit a wall since. And in some sports news, the dominant India will aim to continue the unbeaten run when they take on Sri Lanka in a dead rubber Super 4 encounter in the Asia Cup on Friday. The match also gives the men in blue a low-pressure opportunity to rest some of the senior members, including pace spearhead Jasprit Bumrah ahead of Sunday's summit clash. Now, already qualified India will take on arch rival Pakistan in the final of the Asia Cup on Sunday after Pakistan sealed the final spot by defeating Bangladesh by 11 runs in the Super 4 clash on Thursday. Well, India and Pakistan will face each other in the finals of the Asia Cup for the first time ever in the 41-year-long history of the tournament. And the opening ceremony of the World Para Athletic Championship 2025 took place in New Delhi on Thursday. A message from Prime Minister Narendra Modi was read out by Sports Secretary Hari Ranjan Rao. The Prime Minister extended his best wishes to all the participants, highlighting India's pride in hosting this global event for the very first time. Now, Union Sports Minister Mansukh Mandavia declared the World Para Athletic Championship 2025 open. The Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium will host over 2,200 participants during the championships, which will take place from 27th of September to the 5th of October. All right, that's all for this edition of DD India Live, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India across the world with the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code in the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.